So we've got some managers that we're going to be talking about in the next section, and who we think then the next appointment should be. And I don't think there's any better place to start than the manager who's just come available as of today. And Thomas Tuchel won't be the next Tottenham manager because he has gone to Bayern Munich. But that means Julian Nagelsmann has now been sacked as Bayern Munich manager, and he's become the bookies' favourite immediately to become the new Tottenham manager. He was widely reported to be in the running for the Spurs job when Spurs sacked Jose Mourinho. Or was it before Jose Mourinho? I think when Spurs sacked Pochettino, he was widely, and I think when Spurs sacked Jose Mourinho as well, both times he was widely reported to be in the running for the Spurs job. Now he's available. Is this someone who we want? Is this someone who fits the bill of what Tottenham are looking for now that he's become available? Or is he still too inexperienced? He's still very young. He's still in his 30s. Is he the guy you want, Brains? Nagelsmann?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he's lost 3 games all this season. How dare you lose 3 games? It's absolutely insane. He's got an incredible record in the Champions League. Tuchel is going to come in now and again jump into some other man's bed with his girlfriend and make her climax. He did that. Lampard was doing all right with him in the Champions League, jumped into bed with his wife, made her come, got the trophy. Now he's going to do the same with Nagelsmann. It's crazy. I honestly can't. Who knows what goes through these kind of directors' heads over at Bayern, and what they maybe. I look at them as they're a very long-term club, and I think they can see that there was some big changes happening, and God knows why they could possibly see negatives in him, other than maybe behind the scenes and maybe that his ideologies and where the forecast of where he thinks he can take the team. I mean, maybe he wants to work with certain types of players, and it's already too late for them. Maybe they're bringing in or they're looking at a different road, but. To go from Nagelsmann to Tuchel, all right. I guess that's just this guy's good at jumping in late and winning a Champions League. Who knows, But for us, one person's negative is another person's positive. So for us, it would be amazing if it almost be, it'd almost be too good to be true. Don't you guys feel that? It's
it's kind of perfect timing, isn't it? We're looking for a manager, and they've just decided. Apparently, as well, part of the reason it's all happening now is because Spurs are closely looking at Thomas Tuchel, and maybe that is kind of triggered Bayern Munich into action, because Bayern really like Thomas Tuchel and have always wanted him for a while, and they believe that maybe Nagelsmann isn't the man to take them to the treble that they're on board for at the moment, and maybe it's slipping away. And even though they've won 8 out of 8 Champions League games this season, they're only a point behind Dortmund in the league. Apparently they see maybe the change is the perfect time for them, for Tuchel to kind of take the baton off Nagelsmann. But I agree. I think Nagelsmann, he plays the football we want. He's a young, progressive manager, could be here for many, many years. I think it could be the perfect choice. Ash, Julian Nagelsmann, is he your number 1 choice now? Could this be perfect timing for Tottenham? And would you be willing to wait till the summer to get him in, or would it have to be now?
I feel if we're going to get Nagelsmann, we have to kind of put some type of pre-contract in from early, because you've got Real Madrid sniffing around. They're looking to get rid of Ancelotti. They've been following him since 2018. So a similar track record to us. I know we're 2017 a year earlier, but when Real Madrid come knocking, most managers follow or players follow. And then you look at the Chelsea project with Potter. Potter obviously notoriously isn't doing too well. And the American owners kind of want a young project manager, someone that's going to, develop their very youthful squads that they're going to have for a very long time. And he fits the bill so much. Is he the right man for Spurs? With the infrastructure that we have and the current board that we have, it's debatable. Would I love to see him? Love? I'm gone. No,
you're not gone. You're not gone. We can hear you.
No.
We thought you were just going to answer your own rhetorical question.
He's a man-to-man part, arm around shoulders. He develops the youth. He's
Check,
everything
check.
that we need, everything that we want.
Check.
I know that the argument is that he hasn't won anything, so he's inexperienced at winning titles, etc. But if
Neither
you
have we.
your
Perfect.
ego
Exactly.
out of the side,
Nagelsmann,
if you put your ego to the side, right? And this goes for any manager that you want to pick. Like if you want to pick Poch,
Didn't he win a title? Didn't he win the league title? with Bayern?
Nagelsmann
He
won
won
the
last
Bundesliga.
year with Bayern, I think.
and he's won
last
two
year.
cups.
Other
He's
than
won
last
two
year,
cups
yeah,
as
I know.
well.
Other than last year, but what I'm saying to you, hear my point. My point is, I'm happy for Spurs to drop out the top four. I would like Spurs to get top four this season, obviously, because we can attract a top keeper, top defenders, and then we can get our solid foundation and we can attract a top coach like Nagelsmann. However, if we were to not finish in the top four with a Nagelsmann, I still would be happy because the argument is, oh, like he's not title winning, he's not. That's the argument. Like he hasn't done anything. You know what I'm saying? Compared to like the Contes that we have right now and Mourinho's that we had before. But we've proven that when it comes to big coaches, that model doesn't fit with Spurs. The project works better. We work better with project. When there's a lower expectation in the fan base, then that fan base give the managers more time. And if we give the managers more time and we're not like booing and screaming the managers out, then Levy's less reluctant to pull the trigger because he only reacts when he thinks the fans are coming for him. If he thinks the fans are coming for him, that's when he panics and he sacks the manager or he will sack someone, do you know what I'm saying, to save his own skin. That's how he is. He's very like, he's a coward in that sense, you know what I mean? But I feel like because Nagelsmann is young, he's going to be less pragmatic than like your Levy or even your Conte, because Conte to an extent is very safe. He doesn't risk changing the squad, and that's the reason why our squad hasn't really been rotated that much. That's the reason why we came into the FA Cup and that team was untried and tested. Mm-hmm. We went out to Sheffield United because they hadn't had many games, because they hadn't had a lot of rhythm, they hadn't had that energy, they hadn't had that chemistry together as a team, that particular set 11. That's why we got knocked out. And because Conte was so stubborn and wasn't able to change it throughout the season, give like, you know, other players 10 minutes, 15 minutes there. Imagine he'd given some of our fringe players a bit more time, then he wouldn't have to bring back like a Lucas off the bench because those other players would have had more game time, more minutes. They would have been able to, he would have been able to look at them and see them how they work.
You got more versatility, and you got more play. Yeah,
like you were saying, Brains, they could have that little videotron and say, "Look, you did this well, but then I want you to do this." Yeah. That man management has been missing. You know, like that Harry Redknapp was really good at that kind of like. He wasn't tactical genius, but he was good at getting everyone on side. And I feel like a young manager can relate to the younger players a lot more because their career time as a playing footballer was a lot closer. So they're nearer to like more the modern style football. They understand what's going on.
They got that millennium swag.
They got them exactly. They might even go to the clubs where they go. You never know. Do you know what I'm trying to say? No, I'm joking. But you get the idea. The culture, the identity, the togetherness is gonna be there with him. And that's my argument against those fans that are saying, "Oh, he hasn't got, you know, the credentials to be a top manager."
I think he's overqualified.
Yeah, I agree.
Won too much.
Yeah, but even if it's not Nagelsmann, I'm saying even if it's not Nagelsmann, I'm happy whoever takes in charge from the summer. And like I said, I prefer him to take charge now, not to say like I just want him in. You know, like how they got Man United got Ten Hag in. Mm-hmm. Like he was just there, he was in, but he wasn't taking charge of the games, but he was just there watching. I would be happy for Nagelsmann to just do that, just come in, sit down, just watch the games, analyze everything, while Mason just carries on. Do you know what I mean? And whether we get top four or not, it doesn't matter. But at least because I just feel like if we leave him, he's going to be naked, and they're going to eat him up like literally for lunch. The top clubs come sniffing around, and that's how I feel with any player we have. Because the type of board we have, they don't react fast enough in certain situations. Mm-hmm. So like in the January window just gone, we spent the whole window on Porro when we could have been looking at other targets when we knew we needed to strengthen in the back line. And we didn't do that. And then because there was an opportunity, I'm going against what I said, I know, but because there was an opportunity for Dan Juma, we kind of jumped at that. But then we were still like messing around with Porro, do you know what I mean? And then Porro was the last minute, and then Paratici couldn't get done, and then Levy had to come and save the day, apparently. Like, oh yeah, guys, look, I've saved the day. Look, I did the negotiation. Da, da, da. And for me, because he's so, I know it goes back to that. Like he's so involved in football when he said he's not going to be out of football. I just don't trust him to get this Nagelsmann deal over the line. But yeah, to answer the question,
So true.
I feel like yeah,
Sean, is it a Levy play though? Is this the Levy masterclass to show interest in Nagelsmann, to show
Tuchel,
interest
you mean?
in Tuchel, to then get Nagels,
Or-
to force the hand
or-
of Bayern.
Listen, I'm always someone that wants to give credit to Daniel Levy, even if it's not necessarily due generally. But on this one, it might have been a Levy masterclass, or it could have been a Tuchel masterclass, feigning interest in the Tottenham job to really get, and then himself leaking out the information to get my agent, let someone in Germany know that I'm in deep conversation with Tottenham, and then Bayern Munich pulled the trigger because he wanted to go home.
If you could take Pochettino, say if it's a case of like Nagelsmann's only coming in at the end of the season, but Pochettino will come in now, would you take Poch now?
No, I'll take Nagelsmann.
Sorry. No, sorry, mate. Go on. Sorry, I don't know who that was aimed at.
No. Yeah, I just said it. I'll take Nagelsmann still. That's it.
For me, Nagelsmann is. I know he's an egomaniac, and I know that there's no perfect science, right? There's no perfect solution either. What's interesting, I did a live stream a couple of days ago, and we had like everyone playing the thumb game, and we went through every single manager. I'm sure I'm not going to spoil it, but in a nutshell, like there was no consistent, like no one was really getting like overwhelming support. Not Poch, not anybody. For me, Nagelsmann popping up. I love the fact that he's psychologically based, because whilst I don't agree with what Conte or the way that Conte said what he said, and why he said what he said, I think he was right what he said, and that Tottenham do have a psychological barrier. And if this guy is the sort of person that goes out and goes about the 30% that he thinks is important and has those unique relationships and nuances, like mannerisms, and tries to figure out which particular version of the carrot and the stick each player needs, and doesn't want to outsource that to some third party who's not going to be in the dressing room, some sports psychologist, then all the better. If he's that kind of like creative and innovative in his stance. And I watched back, he was the first person in Germany back when he was at Hoffenheim. He put a giant, like a massive, 40-foot iPad or whatever on the training ground so that he could stop training sessions when he was doing his high intensity training sessions and pivot and replay videos immediately. So he didn't have to disrupt training sessions and take them back into the training room or in the dressing room to show this stuff. So he's always thinking about what's coming. And when you look at his ability to pivot like with his tactics, I don't think it's right to reflect on his style at Bayern Munich, because at Bayern Munich, he's always going to have one of the best squads, if like obviously the best squad in Germany. And so when you look at his formation there, it was like 3+1, because it was 4-2-3-1 on paper, but you had the two centre backs and the right back that wasn't quite as progressive, that would sit in when they had the ball. You had a DM, and then you had the left back that would playing more as a left wing forward. So it was almost like a 3-1-5-1, and it was brilliantly aggressive, brilliantly possession based. But he was playing with Bayern Munich squad against teams that were always weaker. So I don't think you should really reflect on his system there. Take it back to Leipzig though, and he played very, very well with a 3-5-2 situation when they had the ball that pivoted back to some version of either a 5-2-3 or a 3-4-3, however you want to say it, when they didn't. And I think personally that really suits the system of players that Tottenham will have, subject to us improving our centre-backs. You've got Pedro Porro and Udogie that are coming in. Neither of those two players, I'm not saying they can't do it, but neither of them have been tested playing in a back four. Both of them are at their best playing in a wing-back system. And he was at his best with that wing-back system in a squad and for a team that was not the best in the league like he had at Bayern Munich. So for me, I think that Nagelsmann makes a ton of sense. And he's very similar to Amorim. The only difference between him and Amorim is that I think he comes with a better brand, but also Amorim comes with a £30 million release clause. Does Daniel Levy want to pay that and also pay 20 million quid to Conte? How much of an impact does that have on Tottenham's transfer budget in the summer? So
training will be electric. Like it will really engage the players.
Are you confident we can convince Nagelsmann to come?
I don't know what motivates him. I don't know the person well enough, or I haven't researched him well enough to know whether it's money or whether it's ego or whether it's a project. I don't know. But look, obviously there's always going to be some trigger that impacts somebody, and it depends also on whether or not Real Madrid pull the trigger and cancel Ancelotti out. If they do that now, then I think we're obviously not going to succeed. But there's also rumors that Pochettino, is favored by Real Madrid. So, what could eventuate is some really crazy managerial merry-go-round that involves Tottenham Hotspur. And
Look, we spoke about Nagelsmann. Let's go on to the second bookie's favourites, which is Mauricio Pochettino. Obviously, I'm guessing we're all in agreement that Nagelsmann would probably be our first choice at the moment, seeing he's just come onto the market. Obviously, there's big rumours about Mauricio Pochettino. We Spurs have kind of never really got over him ever since he left the club. We're still pining for Pochettino back. There's always that phrase, never go back to your ex. You should never go back to a former manager. But he's a manager who clearly still has a very strong affinity for Tottenham. He does play the Tottenham way in terms of attacking football. He knows how to work under this ownership as well. Maybe he's as well learned from some of the mistakes of his previous tenure. Is he someone you could get excited about and on board for, or is it something that's kind of you feel like maybe it's not a good idea just yet to go back to him? I'll go with you, Sean, first.
Listen, he's my second favourite. Until last night, I kind of figured out that I was probably settling on an order of Poch or Tuchel number 1 or number 2, not much difference between them, and then Amorim number 3. But as I was saying, I think that the consequences of having to deal with the sporting chairman again, who's held us over a table, I'm not sure about him. But with Pochettino, he's definitely my second favourite at the moment, just because it's simple, right? It's an easier transition. It will definitely get everyone back behind it. The reservations I have about having him come back in is whether or not he will have the square pegs for the round holes. His favourite formation being the kind of 4-3-3. Again, it doesn't matter what manager we bring in. Everything about their success will depend on whether or not we improve the back line in the summer. If we don't do a good enough job hiring or recruiting new defenders primarily, obviously we need a new goalkeeper and we might need a new creative player, but the defenders are the priority. Any manager will fail unless we improve. If we do improve, then I think it's easier to transition to continue into a kind of wing-back system because of the unknowns about Porro and about Udogie. And if you do go to a back four system, then you only really need one superstar centre-back to come in and then just improve like on the squad level in that role. But we just don't know whether or not there's going to be whether Udogie and Porro can really transition. I'm sure they can. I'm sure they're adaptable, but whether or not time will tell. One thing I would say is that what does make it interesting about Pochettino is that some of the people that are on loan, or at least one person particularly, may be able to come back and improve our left-back situation in Serge Reguilon. I think the only reason Serge Reguilon was ostracised a little bit from the squad was because he had a problem with Antonio Conte, and I'm not entirely sure if that same problem will exist with Pochettino. And I actually really liked Reguilon. I prefer him as the permanent backup or permanent rotation player to Ryan Sessegnon. And obviously, I don't think Perisic can play in a left back situation anyway. So, in terms of the football, I think it'll be great. In terms of maybe the catalyst for keeping Harry Kane. Harry Kane, again, his future is it may already be determined in his mind. But if it's not, if he is open to a new contract, a lot of that chicken and the egg situation is going to be dependent. Whether or not we can have a conversation with his intermediaries will depend on whether or not he knows who is going to be playing for. If the answer is somebody who's lesser known, if it's a Thomas Frank or a De Zerbi or an Amorim, then maybe Harry Kane's not interested in that, like he wasn't interested in Nuno. If it's Pochettino, I think the chances of keeping Harry Kane exponentially improve. And to me, I personally want Harry Kane to stay. I personally want Sonny to stay. I understand that there's an argument to say, factory reset the whole thing, try and get some money for Harry Kane now rather than lose him in the summer. But I think personally, I'm not sure I'm ready for that level of disruption quite yet. And if there is a chance of getting Harry Kane to sign a new contract, I think it looks incredibly more healthy with someone like Pochettino at the helm.
Yeah,
Brains, Poch, you want him?
Yeah, like I was saying, if Nagelsmann needs to come in in the summer, but Poch should come in now, then I'd take Poch. I would take
Wow.
Poch in a heartbeat. You know, and I would initially when, you know, we were kind of early on before Conte, and we were looking at, you know, let's get Poch back. I was like, you can't go backwards. But now, considering that what we did with Poch, and considering that he would know what he's dealing with, so I think you would hope that his lawyer would be able to get some sort of clauses in, and that he would be coming in, and he would know that Spurs' mentality is that they have to have some young players. He knows how Spurs would have to work in the transfer market, and I just think you're right. Like, I think that's the, you know, I think Kane would love to work with him again. You know, like, and even if it's just for that his last, you know, have a real go at it in his last season if he goes, but I'd love to see that. So yeah, I think considering that some of the players that we got, I think he would probably get he'd probably get something out of Spence. And if you did then have Reguilon and a Doji one side, and then Porro and Spence the other, I think you're starting to look. And then you really just need like your Laporte or someone really good, you know, like your two more really good centre backs, and it's starting to look really good, you know. So I think he would re-energize the fans. I think there would be a lot of positivity there. So there's a lot. But if Nagelsmann wanted to come in now, I'd be like, oh yeah, obviously, you know, because it's something new. But the new is the unknown, you know, like, and so what you think you know is a drop in an ocean of what you don't know. And right now, Nagelsmann is the ocean that we don't know. You know, he could come in and reading and seeing what Mourinho and what Conte have said, that, you know, Spurs are kind of like really, there's a malaise at Spurs, that nobody there, right down to the cooks, the medical team is lackadaisical. Like, nobody works at a high level despite having the most highest level equipment, and, you know, and that's sometimes what happens a lot. So I think a Nagelsmann would come in, hopefully he would get to bring his team in and re-energize that. But then I also think Poch turning back up and going, Daddy's back in town. Like, everyone would be like, all right, let's get back to how we did things, you know? So I don't think you lose with either of them, but if Poch was available now, I'd take him, you know. Yeah, and then we'll get Nagelsmann next time.
Exactly. Get him when he's 40.
What about if both were available tomorrow morning?
If both were available tomorrow morning, I'd probably go Nagelsmann. Just because of that unknown, you know, the complete unknown that we might get. But I also have a big part of me that worries that 18 months later, we're in the same boat. And I don't think 18
That's
months
going to happen
later,
anyway, mate. Let's expect that.
I don't think so with Poch. I got the feeling in this time that Poch has been away that he kind of like came around a little bit to kind of thinking, you know, like, it wasn't all bad there, and Levy wasn't all bad. He has a good relationship with Levy, apparently. Apparently they go on dinners and stuff, and they're actually quite close. So, like, that, you don't feel that way about someone who screwed you over. So I think there's a lot we didn't know about that situation. So I think that he would actually come in and go and look at it like, this is a chance to do it all right, and kind of this is my best shot to actually do something with a bunch of players. So I think it would be a good thing. So maybe it would be Poch would be the right decision.
Ash, what do you reckon? Pochettino, would he be one for you? No?
The biggest problem that people put out for Poch is the pressing. Press. Can Kane press the way he used to press for him 5 or 6 years ago, or 4 years ago?
Not in a 9, but maybe in a 10.
Can Sonny press the way he wants? Can the front three press? Can we press as a team the way we used to under Poch? And I think that was some of the biggest question marks that loads of people had about not bringing Poch back. You look at PSG, Poch had them pressing, and had a lot of divas as well in that PSG team. What would it take for him to get that Tottenham side pressing again? Because obviously a lot of the players are complaining about the training, etc. But would they be willing to carry on that rigorous training? Because that's what they complained about towards Poch's tenure, wasn't it? They were like, training's too hard.
But Ash, the press issue is gonna be a problem with Nagelsmann. Like Nagelsmann doesn't exactly have a standoff
No,
football
100%.
vibe. You know, they're gonna play high press at times as well. I think they're just gonna have to figure out how to play. Like
The press though, the press is easier if you can squeeze the line up higher, right?
Yeah.
If you get the defensive line that are hanging out on the edge of the center circle, and so the press doesn't have to be 30-yard sprints all the time. But that is again dependent on having center backs that are incredibly pacey.
It's my other argument as well.
Sorry, mate.
So
Yeah,
no, that's fine. It's fine. He's chimed in at the right time. So the other argument was the centre backs issue, and we all know that it all depends on the board. You've got Hincapie, albeit that he's inexperienced, but he's a young player, someone that's highly rated, and someone that we've been looking at. We've looked at in the World Cup. We know what his ability is. Sometimes rash, a bit like Romero, but naturally he likes to defend, and he's fast, he's quick. Presses from the front as well. So he's a player that Poch could probably mold and look after, because Poch has got that in his DNA about developing players. Then you've got the issue of, are we going to be able to develop? Are we going to be able to, bring in the players that Poch wants? Because the issue was before we went a long time without bringing players in. When we did eventually bring the players in, the argument is, Ndombele, Lo Celso, Sessegnon, look how well they've done, or look how well they haven't done. But now you've got another cook in the kitchen in Paratici. Is that a bigger spanner at work?